damn, these decks are shady bitches, and I love it. I believe it's super important for every witch to have a good shadow practice incorporated into their overall journey. It's so that they can integrate self and also work on their inner child and heal some wounds. If you haven't yet watched the video I produced last week, which talks about how I do shadow work, make sure you go and check it out here. A question I often get asked is, why would you just have a deck that's dedicated to shadow work? Well, I know that having a deck just for shadow work is a way to program it, to channel your energy into it, and to have it for a specific purpose. It's also a wonderful way to get to know a tarot deck that you've been a little intimidated by, or that you've had a reaction to that wasn't 100%, I guess, positive. If you're feeling a reaction to some cards in there, into some interpretations or representations, that's probably a little niggle from your shadow self that this might be a wonderful deck to work with. My recommendations were purposefully selected as I believe they can reflect the shadow side in you, and I've had some very interesting reactions to these decks, and I think the imagery, the artwork, the guidebooks are all things that's going to help you dive deeper into yourself. The first deck is one I'm sure many people have used in their shadow practice, and it is the Benebell Tarot. It's a masterpiece. This is by Marie White, and it is really confronting with some of it. And there are cards in here that are very outside the box or outside the tradition when it comes to their representation, and that's another great reason to use this deck. The tagline to this deck is Landscapes of the Abyss. Now, if that doesn't scream shadow work, I don't know what does. The guidebook is very informative. It's beautifully written. The box set is delicious, and I just think it is an exceptional way to work with your shadow. For example, let's have a look at this card, the Ace of Swords, which is a bound eagle to a tree. The Ace of Swords is meant to talk about potential, and this is a bound air element. It's very interesting what comes up for a lot of the cards, and it's not always easy to really reconcile. I have definitely struggled a lot with this deck, but it's also really beautiful, and I think it's perfect for shadow work. Another question I get asked all the time is it bad to use any old tarot deck for shadow work? And the answer is no, of course not. Use what you got, babes. Do what you want to do. You do you. But I like having a tarot deck specifically for that practice, and I'm lucky I have a lot of decks, so I can have one specifically for it. My next recommendation is the Goliath Tarot deck, and this deck was created specifically for shadow work, so I mean there's that. But I really adore this deck. I think it is exquisite, challenging, terrifying, ugly, beautiful, tragic, transformative, all of those things, and this is just me riffing off of what I believe this deck is. It was written and illustrated by the same person, Goliath. It is an Australian deck, and I adore it. I don't know if this is ever going to be picked up by a publisher. There's a lot in this, but the amount of work that went into this is just incredible, and I really recommend using this for shadow work. The guidebook is geared towards that, so you're going to have a lot to work with for this deck, and it's outside of the box when it comes to its structure, which is going to help you get out of your own biases when it comes to working with the deck. Hit those comments with your suggestions. Tell me what you use for your own shadow work. Boom! The next deck is the Heaven and Earth Tarot, and it is a blend of Thoth and Rider-Waite-Smith. It's a beautiful deck. The theme is really scrumptious. I love the color palette. I think it really works well for shadow work. This has got deep symbols in it, so that's going to be something you can access to work with your shadow. And again, it's just like really beautiful. So it's going to be a lovely way to introduce yourself to shadow work. Shadow work is a lifelong journey, and not to do this solo. Make sure you have some support and don't try to take everything on at once. Fully integrate one aspect of yourself before you move on to another. And that's the same when you're using tarot for shadow work as well. The next selection is the Lubanko Tarot, and I really have mixed feelings about this deck, which is why I think it's perfect for shadow work, and especially for me. There are some cards in here that really confront me, that made me feel very uncomfortable, that reminded me of past trauma, and guess what? Those are all ding, 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 spells for shadow work. So you bet your bottom dollar I'm going to be using this, and I recommend if you have the same reaction that you do too. It's also stunning. Another deck that is on many people's shadow work deck list is the Bonestone and Earthflesh Tarot. Another deck that is exquisite, and Tourian has done an amazing job, and I love Avalon. Her book is really amazing. There are some challenging cards in this deck for sure. It is called the Bonestone and Earthflesh, which should kind of give you an idea that it is going to be one that's going to shift your perspectives, but also really ground your spiritual practice, and that's one of the reasons why I really recommend it for shadow work. If you do have the Bonestone and Earthflesh Tarot, I recommend that you absolutely take time to read the guidebook, because I think that's really going to help you when it comes to understanding the deck and how you can access your shadow with it. Another deck on the list for my shadow work, and I'm sure of quite a few people's, is the Spirit Keeper's Tarot. Now this is a black and white version, the original version, and I would probably use this one over the new version, the third. I don't have any of the Vitruvian. I talked about Benebell's course in the last video, so this is the deck that I would use in her course, and it's just a stunner. And of course the supplemental materials is going to give you so much to work with. You're going to be spending a lot of time studying with it, and my Virgo rising really likes that. And the brand new deck that has been added to my shadow collection is the Disney Villains deck. I'm obsessed with Disney villains. I think they are amazing. Ursula is fucking fantastic. I love so many of the villains. They seem to be the most fun. There's a whole bunch to unpack there about the queer sort of undertones with a lot of them and how they've kind of pushed a lot of that crap onto them, but that's not why we're here. This is a beautiful deck. It's not Pip, but some of them are. I love that we have new movies out for Cruella and for Maleficent, and it kind of gives you an understanding of where that shadow or where those traumas come from. It's really fun, and I think it's a really great way, especially if you know these characters, to work with your shadow and even your inner child wounds, because these come from a lot of our childhoods. I wanted to add the Oracle of Echoes in here by Tourian. Now the reason why I have her Oracle deck and not her tarot decks is I don't have my copy of the Tarot of Abyss yet, and the Tarot of Echoes is still in production, so she's still creating it. But this is a wonderful, wonderful deck to work with when it comes to shadow work, and if you're more of an Oracle deck person, go grab this one. But bet your bottom dollar I'm going to be getting the Tarot of Echoes the second it comes out, and that will be in my shadow work pile as well. Whoop! Hello! Thor has decided to come and visit me for a minute. He will probably fuck off. So yeah, you just lie there. Lie down. Good boy. Oh, you're so beautiful. You're so beautiful. I love you. Okay. My next deck recommend.
Hi!
What tarot deck do you work with when it comes to shadow work? Let me know in the comments below. And I'll see you on the dark side, because we have cookies. And Disney villains. And spooky, scary skeletons. Bye! See you all next time.